Alright, so I wanted to make a video to give some tips to help people improve their decks, as it's one of the most often requested things that I see on Reddit and in other forums. So if you're already clearing no hope, then this video probably isn't going to be that useful for you, but if you're new to Back 4 Blood or looking to improve, then hopefully you'll learn something new from this. So to start things off, 3 questions. What acts are you playing? Who are you playing with? And what role are you looking to fill in the team? So, what act you're playing? There are some cards that are just very strong in certain acts. I'm sure you've probably heard that use speed is really strong in Act 1 for loading the howitzer. Totally changes how you play that mission. And there's other examples of this as well, like the end of Act 2 has a lot of bosses, so you might want extra weak spot damage to deal with those. Or Act 3, there's a lot of running at the end, so something like Fire in the Hole can be a good pickup. Act 4 is the boss, so again, loads of weak spot damage. And beyond that, there might be certain missions where you just like having certain cards because they help you. So that's why you want to look at what act you're playing. Who you're playing with, again, this is going to change what cards you value. If you're playing with bots, bots come with cards like Amped Up and, Avenge the Fallen and other health cards. So if you're playing with bots, you don't necessarily need to run those cards yourself. You kind of get them for free. Whereas if you're playing quick play, you might want to run Amped Up so you don't have to worry if no one else has it. And of course, if you're playing with friends, then you can all coordinate all the team effects amongst you guys and how you're going to play. Your role in the team, in my opinion, the 2 main categories are Horde Clearer and Special Hunter, which are generally defined by having constant uptime, high rate of fire, fast reloads, so that you can clear the Horde and engage multiple targets at once, and burst damage, or a lot of CC to nuke down specials and bosses. You don't just have to pick one of these, you can go with both if you want to build a generalist deck, and it doesn't have to be your only focus either. You can still play a supportive playstyle, but you should try to be capable of at least one of these. When it comes to picking your cards, you want to start by picking a weapon that suits your playstyle for the above role in your team. This is because the weapon dictates a lot of card choices, as they'll have strengths you want to take advantage of, weaknesses you will want to cover up, and once you've picked a couple of cards that have synergies with the weapon, you can then find other synergies with the cards you're picking, and you should also have an idea of what attachments you want to be taking or what attachments benefit you, as there are going to be cards that are stronger than attachments, and there are going to be cards that are way weaker than attachments, which is going to make you want to look for certain attachments and take certain cards. So, for example, shotguns have very limited range. You can overcome that with a long barrel, and if you want to overcome that with a long barrel, that means you can't take a laser, so accuracy cards become very strong. You want accuracy for shotguns because they have a lot of spread. So by taking the accuracy cards, you solve that problem. You have extra range, which lets you put that accuracy to use. And then because you have accuracy, you've opened up access to the disables aim down sight cards. And you can kind of go through this line of thinking with a lot of weapons as well. When selecting your damage cards, you want to be aware that different types of damage stack multiplicatively with each other, while the same damage types stack additively. So for example, if you take Power Swap, which is 20% bullet damage, and Silver Bullets for 10% bullet damage, that's going to be a 30% damage bonus. If I was to instead take Confident Killer, which is a unique 15% stacking bonus, and Shredder, which is another unique 15% damage debuff to the target, that means I'm going to be hitting for 32.25 extra damage. After 5 or 6 damage card choices, you can quickly accumulate 20% extra damage, which is how you see a lot of players with damage decks just deleting mutations. I want to highlight that there are diminishing returns on actions, on stats that speed up actions. So this is going to be reload speed, aim speed, swap speed, use speed, and revive speed. And the simplest way of explaining this is the numbers you see on your card aren't actually what you're getting in-game. If you have a 100% reload speed bonus, you aren't instantly reloading your gun. It's still going to take you some time. And I want to say 100% speed bonus is going to be closer to halving the time it takes to do that action in-game. That is to say, if you take another 10% after 100%, you're actually only going to get 5% extra speed. And of course, when we're dealing with actions that take a couple of seconds, if the actual amount of time being saved is less than 0.1 of a second, you're probably not going to notice it. So if you already have 75% reload speed, another 20% probably isn't going to be that noticeable. That said, don't be afraid to grab a card with a large bonus if it's something that you need, but don't fixate on removing its drawback. What makes cards powerful, like Glass Cannon, is that it's a 25% damage bonus in a single card. If you take another card to remove the health loss, then it's 25% damage in 2 cards, and that is suddenly very mediocre. You could take any 2 other damage sources and likely exceed it. I also want to highlight that once you're able to do a certain task, once you're able to do your role, you don't need to keep taking more cards to do that role. You want to trim the fat, so to speak, so that there's no overkill. What I mean by that is if you're healing someone and to 100% health with a med kit, you don't need more healing efficiency. If you're already one-shotting a tall boy, you don't really benefit from more damage in those instances. I always grab 1 card to stay alive. Depending on your deck and playstyle, you may want more, but always grab 1. I see a lot of people try to not take anything, but you always want something to help you reposition or take an extra hit. Most of the time it is going to be mobility so that you can avoid getting hit, but there are some decks where being able to take an extra hit is going to work to your advantage. I mentioned at the start that team cards are really important, and I very rarely see people taking them in quick play, so yeah, take cards for the team. They don't just help the team, they help you as well. If you're looking to carry in quick play, some of the best cards you can take are ones that help everybody. Things like Amped Up, On Your Marks to help during combat. You have scavenger cards to find more resources, copper cards to buy the upgrades and more slots. There's so many incredibly powerful team-wide bonus cards that you can take, and I normally grab like 3 or 4 of these. They're really good. And I'm going to talk about economy now, because again, copper is just so insanely strong. There is almost no problem in this game that you can't solve by throwing 4 grand at it. If you're stuck with a boss, or you can buy flashbangs. If you have a holdout like the diner, you can buy wire. If you have a section where you have to run to the safe room at the end, you can buy pipe bombs. There's at the start of Act 6, planting the bombs, smoke bombs work to hide you while you plant. There are so many areas that copper helps and just gives you an instant out. Being able to not only buy these consumables but upgrade them so they can do their job better is such a huge benefit. Now that we have our role and purpose in the team and we've made a deck, now is when I look at picking a cleaner that complements that deck and your playstyle. A mistake that I see people make is that they see a cleaner's gimmick, or they see some, they see the cleaner's stats, and they think, oh, I'll make a deck that revolves around that playstyle, and I feel like that ends up with them not contributing as much as they should, because the role they're filling just doesn't really help in the game that much. So I feel like the obvious example here is Dan and his revive shtick. If people are going down all the time and you're death spiraling, sure, you can take Dan and you can take a load of stuff that gives you bonuses when people go down, but if you really want to win, you want to prevent the death spiral where possible, or maybe have one article that's helping you to prevent a death spiral or bounce back. You don't need to invest your entire deck and cleaner into filling this role, because it's not really a role to speak of. You should be looking at killing the horde or killing the specials and getting to the extract. I might make a follow-up video going through some of the decks you've seen play in the background, and where I explain why I've picked the cards for those. But until then, if you have any questions or if you have any tips of your own, leave them in the comment section down below.